I want to dig into that a little bit deeper. The self-sabotaging from the point of, like, if that goes unaddressed, like um, some what can be some consequences of not addressing that issue.
Everything you're supposed to be, you won't be.
Hey, listen, my name is Antwaun, and I want to welcome you to Thursday with a Therapist, and I have here with me Shekinah Lee. How you doing, Shekinah?
I'm awesome. How are
I'm
you?
doing great. Listen, I enjoyed our last episode, so we had to run it back. And this week, I want to talk about self sabotage.
Mm.
So I've seen this in ministry. Dealing with people who may be in patterns and cycles of sin, and not even just dealing with sin issue, but just how they end up being in their own way.
Mm.
And I just wanted to kind of pick your brain and figure out what does that look like from your perspective.
Awesome. I'm so happy you're bringing that up. Self-sabotage. I have two different ways I'm gonna look at this. I think a spiritual perspective might be helpful here, or some the spiritual side of it, and then
Hmm.
like from a therapeutic side. So from therapeutic side, there's this thing called imposter syndrome that we talk
Okay.
about a lot.
Hmm.
But even past imposter syndrome, there's the idea of when you get caught up in self-sabotage, there's typically like some other reason why, like almost the same way we talk about anger, like there's always
Hmm.
a underlining reason why
Hmm.
anger is here. So that self-sabotage might be a previous experience, that might be some other type of place of pain that came up, that might be some other negative, something negative narrative that you adopted as truth and made a part of your identity that makes you think that this space
That's
isn't
good.
isn't one that's for you.
Hmm.
And so then what can happen is you get into this cycle of not releasing yourself from the things that can be adding to take or taking away from the place you're trying to get to.
Hmm.
So for example, there's relationships that can look like that. There is job opportunities that can look like that. There's even the way you talk to yourself, do things for yourself.
Yeah.
How you treat your health goals, all that stuff can be
Hmm.
directly related to how you're seeing yourself,
Hmm.
and the self sabotage can be a result of some type of way your identity has tied you to a result that you think you can't get.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's so awesome that you bring up the identity component,
Yes.
because what I've seen is when we accept improper identity statements, it does fuel our actions, our thoughts, and it even frames the world that we live in. And so a lot of the work on the pastor side is to deal with those identities by grounding people in the I am statements, even of scripture. And so how important is it to have proper I am statements as you're identifying what your identity is going to be?
Well, I think past that, from a spiritual perspective as well, is you want to look at who are you basing the I am on. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When God says like I am the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, and things like
Hmm.
that, or I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, or
Hmm.
no weapon formed against me shall prosper, things like that. They help fuel. They're like I always tell my client to allow it. I am not a Christian counselor, a certified Christian counselor.
Hmm.
However, I do have a lot of clients who are Christian,
Hmm.
and when allowed to in the space, we bring that into session, and that's one of
Hmm.
my favorite things to make mention to them is
Hmm.
that hey, because you are a part of this phenomenal space,
Hmm.
you are able to take this and use this as a foundation for your healing, for your mental health. Use this as a foundation for your affirmations that you're doing
Hmm.
and your affirmations that you're doing at the beginning of the day.
Hmm.
Using this as a way to pivot your thoughts and create another thought pattern
Hmm.
and reframe your thinking. So I think it's like it is the bare minimum when it
Hmm.
comes down to doing it. It's like identifying where is this I am coming from.
Hmm.
And then it could even be the same thing that debunks whatever negative thoughts that you've been having about yourself.
That's good.
Who did that come from in the first place? Well, sometimes
Hmm.
it might be our parents, but
Hmm.
let's honestly look at our parents. They are
Yeah.
also human. They make
Yeah.
mistakes. They do things
Yeah.
wrong. So how much weight am I putting on this other human's
Mm.
thoughts and understanding of me?
Mm.
Maybe
That's
too
good.
much. Maybe let me back up a little bit. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then let me reframe how I'm looking at myself. Let me change that eyes view so I can restructure my whole entire thought process.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I really want this content to do is to help expose those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so how would you do, if possible, a self-assessment to see whether you are engaging or participating in self-sabotage?
But the most important thing is going to be you taking some time for self-reflection, I think that's the thing that we don't do.
Mm.
And when I say taking time for self-reflection, I mean, excuse me, going through and journaling, going through and asking your
Yeah.
questions like, how do I feel today? Checking in with yourself regularly.
Mm.
All these things bring us to a point of understanding what our thoughts are in the first place. And then once we do that, we take inventory of those. Like, okay, so I'm seeing like a lot of negative self-talk this week. Like, what's been going on? What's happening?
Mm.
How can I start to show up differently, for myself and say something different about this now that I know that's what's going on? But it's only going to come from self-reflection. You're going to have to take some inventory. You're not going to know what you have going on, anything like that, unless you have that. And when we're talking about too, even that's the role of a counselor, that's the role of a therapist, that's the role of like even mentorship, is to allow you the opportunity to have a mirror, like to help you see like, hey, I'm missing something. Do you see something that I'm missing?
Yeah.
Do you see something that I need to readjust or make a pivot in? Like what is that? What does that look like? And that could be the thing that helps you get to that point. So yourself, and then also other people that you trust to allow for
So
that.
it sounds like too that community is a good.
Absolutely. Can't say it enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How does isolating or self-isolation, damage community and the healing component it can bring?
Well, I mean, it's a telltale sign, even when we're doing things like identifying clients that we're dealing with depression or anxiety or things like that. Like even when we're talking about like warning signs for certain things, like certain detrimental things.
Gotcha.
Isolation is one of the biggest things that I hear come up. Like when I isolate, when I separate myself from others and stuff like that. Isolation is almost always a direct relationship to like shame, guilt, or feeling like I don't deserve to be in a space, or like feeling like I'm not, like for example, you might be the person that makes everybody laugh, right? And so because you are the person that makes everybody laugh and you're not feeling very joyful, you might separate yourself from everyone because you're afraid of living up to that not living up to the expectation that other people have of how you should act in certain spaces. So there's a lot of different things that isolation can bring in that way. In the same way though, sometimes isolation can be a good thing. Sometimes isolation can be helpful in you doing that thing we were talking about earlier about taking inventory and looking into ourselves. Sometimes you can't do that. You can't like really see yourself unless you're separate from everyone else. So it has a twofold impact. But the main thing that we want to remember when we are isolating or when we are separating ourselves is like we want to identify what led me to this space. Is it something that I'm dealing with that's causing me enough pain to not want to talk, to lean into somebody else? Am I starting to not be excited about any of the activities I used to love and enjoy? Am I starting to be in a place where I am like have almost like a very pessimistic view of everything that's going on with my life and how I'm showing up? Like, are all of these things present too?
Yeah.
Because then we might have some bigger issues, like tipping on that depression area and tipping on that like that crippling space where you don't grow. You kind of just isolate, separate yourself, and stay right here because it's safe. So there's a lot of different things that isolation can show and mean and bring. But the main thing when we're talking about this idea of self-sabotage is you have to identify, why am I doing whatever it is that I'm doing? You got to figure out what the source is.
I want to dig into that a little bit deeper, the self-sabotaging from the point of, like, if that goes unaddressed, like what can be some consequences of not addressing that issue?
Everything you're supposed to be, you won't be. And I say that in a sense of like, there are certain successes that you can't meet until after the struggle of things. And if you don't allow yourself to get into the struggle in the first place, if you just quit before you start in the first place, you don't get there. People think that sometimes when we're faced with certain obstacles, when we're faced with certain things, like when stuff doesn't go our way, that, oh, it must be a them thing. It must be a them thing. But no, see for yourself, what is it? What part did you play in this result? Because it might be that there's something that you need to make adjustments about. There's something that you need to take inventory on yourself on, and you need to show up. I've always been of the mind that if I'm a person who, or if I'm in a situation where I feel like I know everything, then I know nothing really. You see what I'm saying?
That's
if I'm in
good.
a situation where I feel like I am the smartest person in the room or something, then there's something else wrong. Like there's something I need to check about myself, because I'm always learning. I'm supposed to always be in a place of of being a student. You see what I'm saying? And with that being a student, you have to be able to be open to learn what do I need to do better. And sometimes when we're talking about self-sabotage, it inhibits the opportunity for you to see what what a productive struggle really is. You
Yeah.
don't know because you didn't try, because you stopped before you even began.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned is that the Lord has gifted us all with potential, but that potential needs the right environment to grow. And so, being being in the place like you're saying where you can struggle through some things, you can even have those small beginnings that will one day lead to greater outcomes. It's like the process is important. And so, for those people who are listening, and again, they're on the fence, and this episode may have resonated with them. What is some advice that you would give for them to like go ahead and make the approach to what's necessary for them to grow and to get past the stage that they may even be on? So if that's therapy, if that's journaling, that was a big one. Like those practical steps where they are right now.
Okay, so I would advise that you give yourself the opportunity to sit with yourself. We don't
Hmm.
do that enough. And when I say that, I mean like in the top of your day, before you get on social media, before you check your emails, your phone calls, before you kind of figure out what plan is for the day, sit with yourself.
Hmm.
Sit with yourself, and whatever comes up, write it down.
Mm.
And whether that be like I want to work on this about myself, or and even the common question or the easy question. I actually just asked a friend this a couple minutes ago, but asking yourself like what are some successes right now, what's working for me right now, what's a success, and what's a struggle. And even that space alone can help you take a little bit more inventory about what you need. And then after you ask about the success and the struggle, find somebody you can tell about the success that you think you might encourage them and help them and get them to another level of themselves. And then find somebody that you ask for support for with the struggle. And when I say that, when we talk about self-sabotage, you got to check yourself, and you have to partner yourself with other people who are going to check you too. So then that way you're not just on this hamster wheel doing things that you feel like are productive, but they're really not. And instead, you are being really, really intentional about what you need to do for yourself, and you're partnering with somebody that's gonna make sure you execute that thing. But that's what I would. First step is taking inventory of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. How can the people connect with you?
Hi. Okay. So, I am the Purpose Therapist. That is ThePurpose Therapist. The Purpose Therapist on Instagram. Purpose Joy is our business page on Instagram as well. You can go to purposejoy.org to schedule a consult with me. Get some of our content. There's YouTube channel. There's lives. And I have several events and things like that that come up often, basically quarterly. So yeah, any of those spaces are how you can get in touch with me.
Awesome. Listen, I've enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah, same,
I
same.
think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, hey, tune in again with Thursday with a therapist and get the help you need. Hey, peace.
Bye.